Right, okay, so we're going to look at using InDesign to create interactive SWFs, so basically Flash from InDesign. Okay. To view the file, the user would need the Flash plugin and a browser, or you can get the Flash projector from the Adobe site, which basically kind of makes it into like an application, so which can be Windows or Mac. So if the user doesn't have Flash on their machine, they can use the projector to actually view the Flash content. Okay, so it basically makes like an exe file from the Flash content. Right, so to start off with, you'll see that my kind of workspace is set to interactive. Okay, so all this stuff really I'm showing you now is new to CS5, all the interactive stuff. And we've got various new panels. We've got the animation panel, timing panel, kind of media panel, and the preview panel, so we can see how it's going as we're building. Okay, so just looking at this presentation here that I did a while ago in London. Okay, so we have something called the Designers Fiesta, which we do every year in London. Okay, we all do different stuff. Okay, and this is what I did. So we're going to start off by looking at the animation tools in here and how they work, what options we've got. So the first thing I want to do with these clouds, okay, they're just simple vector drawings, is to animate them. I want like repeating kind of clouds in the background. So I'll just start by selecting all three clouds. Okay, I'm going to go into the animation panel, and we've got loads of presets. Okay, so they're almost like pre-made animations, if you like. And if we take a look, we've got various ones like move to the left, or move left, move right, etc. So I'm going to start with move left. Okay, I want my clouds to move to the left. So I've done them all in one go. Okay, you've got this little preview up here that gives me an idea of what it's doing. So it's moving to the left. Okay, let me just hide that away. And then if I start clicking on each cloud individually, you can see the motion path that it's added to the clouds. Okay, so I'm going to come to this one here, and I want it to leave the page. Okay, and let's say I'm not too sure of how far the cloud will actually travel. So if I go into the animation panel, I'm just going to click on this little thing here called the animation proxy, and it shows me where the cloud will be at the end of the path, which is kind of really useful. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about adjusting that one, but what I'm going to do for the duration is I'm going to give it, say, about 3 seconds to get to that location. Okay, next cloud I'm going to click on. Okay, I can see the animation proxy, so I need it off the page. So I can click on that green dotted motion path, and if I just zoom in a little bit, I'm going to grab this little node at the end, and I can just drag it off the page. Okay, I'll just click away, click back on that cloud so I can see it's going off the page. That's fine. Okay, and I'll give that a bit of time, so I'll try 5 seconds. Okay. Click on this one here, and again I'm just adjusting the length of the motion path. Oops, not that much. Okay, it doesn't really matter with these because they're just going to go off the page and that's going to be it. Okay. Okay. Right, I'll try, let's say 6 seconds for that one. Okay. Right, so the stuff I'm kind of showing you here can be used for like presentations. So you can do presentations, you can build yourself like a mini website out of it. And if you've seen the new stuff with the digital editions kind of stuff, you can build things for the iPad using some of the features I'm going to show you today. Okay, so let's. Okay, right. So I'm going to take a look at that to start off with. So I'm going to access the preview panel. You can do it just down here. Okay, click on that little icon there. Okay, I'll just make this panel a little bit bigger so you can see it. Okay. So I'll just click on play once again. Right. So you see at the moment it animates one cloud. When that animation's finished, it then does another cloud, and followed by the last one. Not the way I want it to work. I want it to do all clouds in one go. So what I need to do is to go into the timing panel, okay, and in the timing panel it shows my animations. So I've got 3 cloud animations, so it's given a default names of path. So what I can do here is select all the animations, and at the bottom of the timing panel I've got an option of playing them all together. So I click on that, and you'll see it kind of links them all up. So if I test that out again, okay, now they're all playing kind of all together at the same time instead of one after another. Okay. Right, so I need a few more clouds, so I'm going to kind of rob some of these I've got already. I'm going to copy that one over. Okay, and just so you can see them against this white background, I'll just come in and change the fill color. Okay. I'll just make it a light grey color. Okay, I won't do that actually because that's the same colour as the proxy. Okay. Actually, I won't do that because it's the same colour as the sky. Now let's make it red just for the sake of being able to see it. Right, so I'll put one about there, one there, one there. Okay. And then I'll just spend a few seconds just making sure that they end up off the page. Okay, and I want these just to end just off the page, so okay. Now what I'm going to do different with these clouds, I'm going to make sure they loop, so I have constant clouds. So I'm going to select them all to start off with. I'm going to go into the animation panel, and then there's the option for looping, so I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to just go to each individual cloud and just adjust their duration, so their timing. So I'm going to just make these up. Okay. So hopefully we have something reasonable. Okay. Now because they're new clouds, I'm going to just have a look in the timing panel. Okay. Right. I've actually not copied, but anyway. So I've got these two here that are not part of that kind of group, so I can drag them up so they're all part of the same group. And if I now test my animation, I'm just using keyboard shortcuts to preview it. So I'm using the keyboard shortcut of Command Shift Enter, or that'll be Control Shift Enter. That just brings up the preview panel, and then I can see my clouds. Okay. And the ones that are going off the page will eventually loop. Okay, so I want kind of constant. So I could mess around with the timing, so it's a bit more random, but that will do. Okay. Right. Okay. And next off, what I'll do is I'll have a text box up here, so you can animate anything you want. You can text, images, etc. So I'm going to just type in London up there. Let me just correct the spelling. Okay. London. Right, make that a bit bigger. Okay. Right, so I want the clouds to kind of play for a bit, then I want London to drop down. Okay. So I'm going to nip into the animation panel, look for a preset that's appropriate. So you'll see there is the kind of strangely no move down, only move left, right. So I'm just going to choose move left to start off with. Okay. And then I need to swing the motion path downwards, and to do that I can grab this white selection tool and click at the end, okay, and it just becomes like a normal path, and I can just drag it down vertically like so. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it looks alright up there. Right. Right. Click back on there, and then I'll give it some kind of duration. I'll give it, say, 3 seconds. Okay, so I want some clouds to come across the screen first, then I want London to kind of drop down after a few seconds. Okay, so when London comes down, I don't want it just to kind of come down and then suddenly stop. I want it to come down and slow down. Okay, so kind of to a gradual stop, so a bit more kind of nicer to look at. So we've got an option here called speed. Okay, and if I can just zoom in a bit, you might be able to pick out what's happening. Okay, so hopefully you can see these little dots. At the moment they're all evenly spaced, so the animation is constant. And if I come into the speed here, and I'm going to do an ease out, okay, which basically means it starts off fast, so the dots are further apart, so it starts off fast, and as it gets to the bottom, the dots become closer together, so that means it's slowing down. Okay, that'll be a little bit nicer to look at. So that's simply easing. So you've got ease out, starts off fast, slows down, and you've got ease in, which does the opposite. Or you've got a combination of them both. Okay, all right. So let's just take a look at what we've got so far. Okay, so the clouds go across the sky. Okay, so only after all the clouds are played does London drop down. Not what I want London to drop down as the clouds are going across the sky. So what I can do for London is first of all go into the timing panel, and you'll see poor London's all by itself at the bottom, it's not part of the group. So I'm going to put it inside the group, I just drag it up. Okay. I can then click on London, and I want to delay it. So even though it's part of the group and they're all going to play at the same time, I can still click on London and say, don't actually stop playing London for 2 seconds. Okay. And if I now test that out, okay. So in 2 seconds time, there you go, London pops down and is there. Right. Right, okay, so I've decided to put stuff in here more for a bit of fun than any kind of real purpose. So we've got the London bus. Okay, so I want the London bus to shoot across the bottom. Okay, and it's going to stop near to the right hand side. Okay, and as it's moving across, I want it to play some sound. Okay, and I'll kind of bus sound. Okay, and then after it's kind of stopped, I want a button to appear, so the user can then progress to the next page, if you like. So what we can do is actually place the bus where we want it to stop. I'm going to place it there. I can then come into the animation panel, and if I dig down here into the properties, click on that. I need to first of all choose a preset, so I'm going to say move to the right, because I want the bus to move to the right. And then in the properties here, I've got a couple of options how it's animated. So I want to get it to go to this location. So where it says animate, I'm going to choose to current location. Okay. So we then start over on the left and move to the right. Okay. And then I'll just move that over. Okay. And I'll just give that 3 seconds. Okay. So if I just quickly preview this, you'll see it working. Okay, there's our little bus coming along. Okay. Right, I'm just going to tweak its animation again, so I'm going to click on the bus and I want it to slow down again, so the speed I'm going to change to an ease out, so it starts off fast, slows down. Okay. And I think I want it to start moving, let's say 1 second after London's in its end position. So I can go into the timing panel, I'll move bus into the group. Okay, right, so there you go. So we gave a 2 second delay. Let's give the bus, I don't know, let's say a 3 second delay. And then I'll just quickly preview it once again. And then the little bus comes in. Excellent. Okay. Right, we're going to bring some sound in. So the best kind of sound format to bring in is an MP3. Okay, so I've got the bus noise, 3 seconds. Okay, so match my animation. And what's nice about sound is you can just, even though it comes in and pretends to be like an image, we can just drag it out on the clipboard, so it doesn't actually have to go on your document. And then to make it accessible in the timing panel, because at the moment you see it's not there, I can go into the media panel and I can turn on play on page load, so it kind of automatically starts or is accessible when the page is accessed. So if I go into the timing panel now, and I'll see it's there. Okay. I'm going to nip back to the media panel, and one thing I need to do is to ensure that if the sound's playing and the user goes to another page, that the sound stops. So here I'm going to click on stop on page turn, and that will automatically stop the sound. Right, let me just go back to the timing panel. Okay, I'm going to make sure that the sound is in the group with the bus. So let me just get that in there. There you go. Right, and one more test. Let's have and I'll just turn my volume up. Okay, working okay. Right, and the last thing I need is a button. Okay, buttons are dead easy to create. I'll just do it off the page for a second. Okay, I'm just going to create myself a rectangle. So I'm going to do an arrow, make myself a square. I'm going to go up to the object menu, convert shape, convert it to a triangle. Okay. Rotate that round. Okay. And just to make it a little bit neater, I'm going to select those two shapes, come up to the object menu, down to Pathfinder and choose add to basically unite them or merge them together. That gives me that shape there. Let's make it a touch smaller. Put it there. Right, so what they've done in the InDesign CS5, they've updated the button panel slightly. So I'm going to go into the button panel here. Okay, I've got my shape selected, and when you're creating buttons, you need states. Okay, so you've got three possible states. You've got a normal state. That's how your button looks when your cursor's nowhere near it. Rollover state when your cursor's over it, and you've got a click state when you actually click on the button. So I'm just going to do two just for sake of time. I'm going to do normal and rollover, so I just simply click on them, and then for the rollover I'm going to make it look slightly different. So I can nip into the colour panel and I'll just change the colour, just make it green. Okay, so you'll see that's how it's going to interact. Normally it's going to be blue, when my cursor goes over it it's going to be green. Alright, next I need to get the button to actually perform a task, so that's going to be an action. Okay. And we can also choose an event. So event is how your button actually works. So I'm going to leave it on its default on release. So that means when I click on it and let go of my mouse button, it actually releases it, it does something. So I've got various other ones on click, etc. So I'll do on release. In the actions panel, or action section, I'll click on the plus here, and I just want it to go to the next page. So there it is, go to next page. Okay. Simple as that. Alright, and then I'm going to click on that, and I don't want this button to be shown up right from the start, so I'll click hidden until triggered. And I'm going to go into the animation panel, and I want it to kind of pulsate. Okay, so it draws the user's eye, so I'm going to choose pulse. Okay. You can see that kind of effect it's going to get. Okay, let's give that a try. As you can see, you can't see that button at the moment. There you go. Okay, it really draws the eye down there. Okay. Bye-bye. Right, so I'm going to leave that page as that. So you can see there's different ways of getting things to work. And I'm going to move to this. So all about facts about London. Okay. So I want these speech bubbles to only appear when the user clicks on the page. So I'd have to put a little instruction somewhere to tell the user what to do. So what I'm going to do here is select all of these and give it a preset of appear. Okay, so I want it to appear. Now the default is to appear when the user accesses the page. So you'll see here on page load. Okay. So if I was to preview this at the moment, okay, it just happens when the page loads. It does one after the other. Okay. So just get rid of that. So I want to actually do it on page click. So with them all selected, I come to the event up here on page load. There's a tiny little arrow. I'm going to change it to on page click. So you have to click on the page. Okay. I'm going to come back up and turn off on page load. So when I now access that, it does nothing. Only when I actually click on the page does it bring in the information. So it's kind of a nice interactive way of doing stuff. Okay, but at the moment it's a bit kind of uniform. It's just doing one after the other. I want it a bit more random. So I can nip into the timing panel. There they all are in the timing panel. So it brings in the text, which makes it a little bit easier to work out what's what. And I'll just randomly move these about. Okay. And when I now try it, it does them in a slightly different order. Okay, so kind of nice way. It's kind of discovery learning, if you like it. They have to actually perform a task to get the information. Right, let me just put a few things back. Yeah. Okay, so the next set of kind of information, I want the user to actually click on the button before they appear. So I'm going to quickly make myself a button. I'm going to grab myself a text box, and I'll just type in something like click here. Okay, and I'll just send. Oops, don't do that. Oh no! Right, I won't use that keyboard shortcut again. Right, let me do it up here. Okay. And I'm just going to vertically align the text into this text box, which you can't see at the moment. You will do in a second when I give it a colour. There you go. I'll just make it red. Right, and then I'll just make the text bigger. So yeah, anything can be kind of interactive, which is really nice. Text boxes, pictures. Right, so I'll just click on normal and roll over. So I've found that you've got to have at least 2 states for it to work. If you try and do it with one state, I find it doesn't like it. Okay, so I'm on my roll over state here, and I'll just change the fill color. Alright, so there's my little visual interaction. So I'm going to select all these speech bubbles here. Okay, and in the animation panel, I'm going to choose a preset. So again, I'll choose appear. Right. And you'll see here again the event is on page load. So I don't want it to do it automatically when the page loads. I'll turn that off. Okay. So I need to link all the animation to this button. So I come to this little thing here, the button trigger. Click on that. Okay. And then I move my cursor over the button and click on that button, and it then links the button to all the animation up here. So you're now seeing the button panel for that button, all that animation has been placed. Okay, and I'll just make it a little bit more random. I'll move all this stuff about, and then when I preview it, okay, nothing's there, but when I click on the button, it then goes through and plays the captions. Pretty nice. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay. And on this slide, I want a slideshow. I want to show lots of images about London, okay, in a very kind of small area. So what I'll do first of all, just to make it a little easier to see, I'm going to just hide the background. I'm just going to File, Place, got some images of London already set up. Okay. Right, I'm going to use a nice little tool that you can use for anything you create in InDesign. I'm going to lay out 4 images in one go. So I'm just going to hold down Command Shift. It changes my cursor to a grid. I can then click and drag out the grid. Okay. So I've got 4 images, so I only need 4 cells. So I'm using my up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. Okay. So I want 4 rows. Okay. I'm using my left arrow key now to reduce it down to 1 column. Okay. And then when I release, it's going to place all those images in there. A nice neat grid. And I'll just get them to fit in a little bit better. So right click, fill frame proportionally. Okay. Right, so these are going to be my thumbnails, and when I click on each one of these, it's going to show me the enlarged version of the image. So I'm just going to copy them across, and I'm going to align all the pictures to the top edge. So I'll just go to Object, Layout Options, Align. Okay. And I'll choose Top Edge. Okay. So aligns them all so they're all stacked on top of one another. Let me get rid of that. And then I'm going to scale all these 4 images to make them a bit bigger. So Command Shift or Control Shift to scale them up. Okay, so something like that will do. And then to just get the quality back in these images, I'll come up to View, Display Performance, and just ensure it's on high quality. Okay, and just updates them. Okay. Right, so I'm going to do the next stage very quickly. I'm going to click on each one of these thumbnails and make it into a button. So I'm just clicking on each one in turn. Now I'm just going to go back, and for the roll of the states, perhaps I'll just reduce the transparency, or the opacity really. Okay, I'll just kind of fade them out, just so we've got some kind of visual indication they are actually working. Okay. And so at the moment, all my buttons, I've been changing the rollover states. That's when the cursor goes over, and you should always put the buttons back on their normal state. So in the buttons panel, you come into this little menu in the corner, the panel menu, and choose Reset All Buttons to Normal State. That just ensures that they all work as normal. Right. Next, I'm going to select these 4 images here. Okay, so I've just highlighted them. And there's a new panel called the Object States panel. So think of object states as almost like layers. So I'm going to click on Object States here, and with those 4 images selected, I'm going to click on this little icon here to convert those to essentially kind of multiple states. Okay. So you see them all listed, and as I click on them, I can move from image to image. And then all I need to do is, my last task is to link these buttons to the relevant state. So I'm just going to put the states in order. You don't really need to do this, but I'm just going to do it for kind of sake of doing it. So you can just simply drag the states up. So the first one is these kind of guards. Next one is the Houses of Parliament, and then the London Bridge. Okay. Right, so I'm going to click on each of these buttons, go into the button panel, okay, Action, click on the plus, right, and I'm going to choose Go to State. So these big pictures are states, go to state, and what's nice about it, when you're choosing the state, you can actually see a little visual image of what it is, so it makes it really easy to make sure you're going to the right one. Oops. This is Parliament. Okay. And you can get these images to fade in as well. So before making these bigger images into states, I could have applied an effect like fade in, and then as I click on the little thumbnails, you can get the big images to fade in as well. Okay, so that one's okay. Right, so let's give that a try. Okay, so I can click on each one and you'll see that they're now loaded in. It's a nice little kind of slideshow. Okay. So kind of easy to do. Okay. And what I might possibly want to do is to make sure that no big image is there when they first enter it. Might want to put a little message to the user telling them to click on one of these thumbnails on the left. So I can select all these states once again, and in the object states panel I can come into the corner and tell it to use this option, hidden until triggered. So that hides all these states, all the big images. Okay, so that will give me space to put a little message here, and then when they click on it, it then becomes more big images show. Okay. Right. Let's move down to the next one. Okay. Right, so I want a map about London where different things are, where people go and eat, the attractions of London. Okay. But I want it to be a bit more kind of fun than just a boring map. Okay, so I want them to be able to click over here on this attractions button, see the attractions, some of the attractions of London, or if they click on here, you can see different places to eat. And when they come over, kind of the knife and fork, it brings up some information about that place where they can buy food. All right. So I'm going to start off with this Big Ben, as most people call it. Okay. Right, I just want it so when they put their cursor over it, it plays the chimes of the Big Ben. Okay. So the first thing to do would be to bring in the audio. I'm just doing Command D. Okay. So there you go, Big Ben. Just drop the sound file over there. Okay. And I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. Now, normally I'd make these kind of rollover areas, or the hotspots really. Normally you make them invisible, but just so you can see them, I'll keep a border around them. Okay, so that one's got a blue border. Okay, I'm going to go into the buttons panel, make it into a button. And I'm going to set the event to roll over. So when they put their cursor over it, I'm going to change the action to sound. Okay, so it's picked up the sound and it's going to play Big Ben when I put my cursor over it. Okay, let me just adjust the size of the button a bit. Right, also when I move my cursor away, I want it to stop playing that sound. So I'm going to change the event now to on roll off. Choose sound once again, and tell it this time for the Big Ben MP3 file the option to stop playing that sound. Okay. So let's try that out. Cool. Okay. It'll at least make them jump anyway. Okay. All right. Let's have a look at the London Eye next. Okay. So very similar to what we did before. When I put my cursor over it, I want it to spin round. When I move my cursor away from it, I want it to stop. So I've got it selected in the animation panel. I will first of all set a preset. So I'm going to choose rotate. I'll have it going clockwise. Let's say 180 degrees. Should be fine. Okay. Right. Then I'm going to use my ellipse tool. I'll just draw an ellipse over there. And I'll make this once again into a button. Okay. Now, it's starting to get more kind of in detail, this project. So before I set up the animation to this button, I'm going to click on the animation that I had set up. And in the animation panel, I'm actually going to name the animation so I know what it is. It's already called it wheel because this drawing is on a layer called wheel. I'll just call it wheel animation. Okay, and then I'll put the hotspot back. And then I'll nip into the buttons panel, change the event to on rollover, and tell it to essentially play me an animation. So the animation is wheel animation. It's going to play it. It's good. I'll come to on roll off. Tell it again I want to do an animation, and then this time tell it to stop. Okay. So we'll give that a try. Okay, so when I go over it, it plays, and when I go back it stops. Okay. So you can see it's kind of easy to do. Right, let's have a look at the bridge here. Okay, so when they go over it, I want the arms of the bridge to lift up, and when I move away to go down. Okay, so I'm going to just come in, just make that one a bit smaller. Go into the animation panel, and I want it to rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Where's it gone? Right. Now, hopefully you can see this when I zoom in. By default, it assumes that I want to rotate from the center of this rectangle, where I want to do it to the left-hand side. So I can use this little widget thing here to tell it to rotate from the left side, not the center. I'll give it a duration, let's say 3 seconds. And I'm going to use a speed preset of ease in and ease out. So it starts off slow, speeds up, and then slows down as it gets to the top. Need the other arm doing, so I'll just drag this one over. And again, I'll come to this little widget here and tell it to animate from the right-hand side. I'm going to change the preset. I want it to go clockwise this time. So rotate clockwise 90 degrees. Okay. And I just noticed there the duration went back to 1, so just change that back to 3. Okay. And it's also done that as well, so I'm going to put that back to the right hand side. Okay. Right, let's just take a look at that. At the moment, it's not set up as we want it. Okay, so you can see the arms going up, it does one first, and then the other one after. Okay. Right. So first thing I need to do with these arms is I'm going to click on each one and I'll just name them. So I'll just call that one left arm. Call this one here right arm. Alright. And for each one I need to make sure it doesn't work on page load. So I'm going to turn that off. So I want to control it with a hotspot. Right. I'm just going to grab the pen tool. I'm going to make a very basic hotspot. And I'll make that into a button. Right, so event on rollover. Basically play an animation, and the animation is going to be left arm. Okay, it's going to play that. I also want it to play the right arm. And then what I'm going to do for each animation is when I move my cursor away, I can tell it to reverse. I won't ask about that noise. I assume it was the chair.
I told you to leave that bomb by accident.
So,
yeah, right. Smell it,
so what I'm doing for each arm animation here is just to tell it to reverse when I move my cursor away from the hotspot. Okay. Right. Let's give that a try. Okay, it's not going to work quite how I want it at the moment. So when I put my cursor over, still one arm is going up, followed by the last one. Not to worry. Okay. So all I now need to do is go into the timing panel. I can see my left and right arm animation. I'm going to just tell it to play together. That will then sort that little issue out. There you go. Cool. So more fun than anything else. Okay. Right. So what I'm now going to do is just go around and select each hotspot and its attractions and group them. I don't need to do that one. Oops. Right. And I'll do the same for the knife and forks. I'll select all of these. Okay. And group them. And what I should have done is actually grouped all the attractions as well together. I'm going to select each one of these. And group them. Right, and then I'm going to select both groups. And then in my object states panel, I can put them in as different states. Okay, so that means I can turn each state on and off, knife and forks and other stuff. Oops, I missed that. Okay, I'll just undo that. Right. So I've got both groups selected. Go into my object states panel. Okay. It then puts them into different states. So I can either have the knife and forks or the attractions. So one or the other. And then I'm going to click on these buttons here, which I've already set up beforehand. Okay. And so when I click on the attractions, I only want to see the attractions. So I can go to state. And I want to see the attractions, that's state 2. Click on this one here, go to state, and that's going to be the knife and forks, which is that one. And when I test that out, go to attractions or knife and forks. It's basically like a multi-map, it's doing multiple things. And then when I go over attraction, it does various things. Well, that one stopped working. Okay, not a problem though. Okay. Dong, thank you. It's working. Right. The reason it's not working, sometimes states don't like extra things in it. Okay, extra interaction within a state. Okay. So what I'm going to do for the let me just I'm going to get to the knife and forks. So what I need to do to get to the knife and forks again is go into my object states panel and just click on the top state. Right. So yes, what you need to do with some interactions is actually build them outside of the state. So for this knife and fork here, when I put my cursor over here, I want the information about this place where I can go and get some food. Okay. So I've got it already set up. It's just a load of grouped items, and if I convert it, oops, into a button, okay. Yeah, let's make it into a button. And the reason I'm making it into a button is you can hide and show buttons, and that's the only reason I'm doing that. And I'm going to make another button over here that will trigger it. Okay. Now I'm just going to name this button. So to name buttons, you can do it up here. I'll just call it Founders Hotspot. And then for this button here, I'll just call it Founders Arms. Just so I know what on earth I'm doing. Trying to get a bit organised. Right. So I'm going to click on this button here. I'm going to hide it by default, so hidden until triggered. And then I can click on this button, and this button is going to show me this button. So I'll do it on rollover. Go into my actions, show hide button. And if I toggle down here, I want to show my Founders Arms button, so I'm going to click on that. I can click on the little eye to show it. Okay. And I can also set up my on rollover. show and hide buttons. So it's kind of, you've got to kind of be fairly organised and know what you're doing. And this one's going to hide it. So on roll off, when I move my cursor off it, it's going to hide it. So I've clicked on that eye there. Let's give that a try. Okay. There you go. So we have nice little pop-ups. Sound effects appreciated.
Don't encourage it, for God's sake.
Alright, so that's how I would do all of these if I had the time. Okay. I'll just show you a slight little problem. So I'm on my eat out options. If I go to my attractions, okay. Right, let me just oh no. Right, so it's gone to Spotlight. Let's have a look. Just make sure it's all attractions there. It's right. It's fine. Right. So the problem is, put that hotspot there. When I go to my attractions, the hotspot's still there. Okay. So what I can now do is I can come to my attractions button. And what I can do here is actually tell it to hide this button here. So I'll just do it very quickly. So click on there, show hide buttons. I want it to hide the founder's hotspot. So I can click on there to hide it. And that might do it. Let's have a look. Okay. Click on my attractions and now it's gone. Yeah.
Big Ben back.
Big Ben's not back, so what I would do with Big Ben, it was probably a mistake to actually try and get it in a state. I'll do the same for Big Ben. I'd actually draw out the button on top. Yeah, I'll draw the button on top, just like we did with this button here, and then I'll attach the sound to it. Yeah, that's how I'd overcome that. Right. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is have a navigation that allows me to go from page to page, because at the moment the user can only go from the first page to the second page and nothing else. Right, so if I go into my pages panel, okay, so if you've ever used InDesign before, you'll know that you've got master pages, and they can control other pages. So at the top of each page it says A, okay, you can hopefully just see it. And so my A master is controlling all these pages. And what I've done on my A master, if I double click, okay, I set myself up a little navigation. Okay, I'll just move it up here. Right, so all it is 3 buttons and a bit of text. And I'm going to double click to get into each button. And in the button panel, I'll tell it what to do. So for my fax button, I want it to go to a certain page. Now I'm going to be slightly careful how I'm making this work. So the idea is, if I just move it into place, the user would only see nav. Okay. When they put their cursor over it, this is going to pop in. They can then choose one of these buttons, and when they move the cursor away, it will pop back. So that's the idea. So the whole thing is really going to be on rollover, so I need to make sure these buttons aren't using the same action or it'll get confused. So I'm going to click on a button there, I'll change the event, I'll do it to on click this time, and then I'm going to get it to go to a page, so go to page, and that's page 2 for the fax. On click, so the images page where the slideshow is on page 3, and the map, oops, nearly did it, go to page is on page 4. Okay. So I don't want them to go back to the front cover, that was just there as a bit of fun really. Okay. And then what I do to the whole thing, which is grouped up, I first of all give it an animation. Okay, I'm going to do move left. Now, first of all, I'll just get it roughly into the right location. Right, we'll just do a little bit more, then we'll say it's near enough. Yeah, that's near enough. Right, so what I'm going to do for the animation is go back into the animation panel. Okay, at the moment it's going to work on page load, which I do not want. Let's turn that off. Okay. So I'm going to change the event to on rollover self. So when I place my cursor over that, it will move itself basically. And then I've got an option here of reverse on roll off, so it puts itself back to where it came from. Okay. And then if I go back to any page now, you'll see it's now there available because it was on the master page. And I'm going to give the whole thing a try. So I'm using a slightly different keyboard shortcut. So before I was just doing Command Shift Enter to preview one page at a time. If I hold down the Alt key as well, I can actually preview the whole document. So I'm doing Command Alt Shift Enter or Control Alt Shift Enter. Okay. So there's my little animation. Okay, so I could use this arrow to navigate, but I'm going to use the navigation up here instead. So it pops in, okay, pops out, and I move away. So if I want to go to the facts page, I can now click on that. It takes me to the facts page. I can click or do whatever I like. I might want to go to the map next. Okay, and then I can have a look at my attractions. Okay. Bong, thank you. Right, so that's really kind of finished. So what's left to do is to simply export it. Okay. So all I need to do to export it is go to File Export. Okay. I just need to make sure the format is Flash Player SWF. Click on Save. Okay. So definitely on all the pages, I'm going to generate the HTML file and I'll view after exporting, so it'll automatically open it up. Okay. We'll do this, we'll put on the interactive page curl. Everyone likes that one, don't they? Okay. And we'll click OK now, and it should go off. Open it up in a browser for me, and then we should see it all working. Okay, so it's a bit slow because it's opened up the browser as well, so it's all coming in. Oops. Okay, and then all the navigations before should work exactly. Cool. How about that, eh? That's alright, isn't it?
Big Ben.
Sorry?
The Big Ben.
Big Ben, you ready? Oh, that's rubbish! Right, yeah, so if you're already used to InDesign, it's a great way of being able to do all the interaction stuff. And if you're more familiar with Flash, you can actually export from InDesign back into Flash, okay? And it'll keep your animations, but one thing you will need to be careful with is your buttons. You'd have to reprogram your buttons back in Flash, okay? But what you could always do is work the other way around. You could actually animate in Flash, bring your content into Flash, and use it that way around. See, so it's kind of nice ways of working.
Cool. Excellent.
Thank you.
Is anyone doing that in InDesign already, or is that brand new?
Yeah. I've tried, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
I've tried before, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need a training course from Heavy
I'll have to get my boss first.
any questions or anything? I was going to say as well, special guest appearance tonight by David Darnold, who's our lead instructor, Android iPhone, BlackBerry, Flash,
ActionScript.
So,
yeah, the interesting thing for me from this point of view is that from a designer's point of view, it's very, very easy to put together. But exactly what Ian's got there, we could put on a mobile device in 30 seconds. So that content we could take and we could export that straight onto an iPad and put it on the App Store straight away. So with all your InDesign skills and a little bit of kind of planning, you could get that content, and that's a perfectly sellable app. Effectively, a bit more work here and there, but we could shift that easily. And
we don't need developers anymore. Basically.
Exactly, yeah. You don't need people like me or Lee over there who's on my iOS course this week. You know, you guys can actually produce interactive content and get it onto devices right now. All you need basically is like one line and a DOS prompt, and that's it. It's done.
This is quite addictive, a bit like Angry Birds as well, wasn't it? Really, to be honest. So yeah, any questions?
Flash doesn't work on their iPhone or their iPhone.
Once you package the application actually as an app to put on the App Store, within the browser it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
But if you package it up as an application and publish it to the App Store following that normal workflow, you can package everything like this actually as an app. You can take exactly the same thing and package it for Android. And so within 30 seconds, basically, as long as you're guaranteed the same screen resolution, so if you compare the iPad with like the new Samsung 10.1 tablet, exactly the same resolution, so the same thing, 2 DOS prompt lines, done. And then you're on both marketplaces. The issue comes when you've got different screen sizes, but then, you know, what, a day to repurpose this for like an iPhone 4, and then repurpose it again for an Android, maybe like a Nexus S that Mark's got, which is 480 by 800. So it's a nice workflow. Yes, it would be a little bit of repurposing, but compared to Legal Testament for this actually, it's like compared to actually programming it natively, that workflow beats it hands down.
Do you ever get any trouble working in between Firefox and Internet Explorer? Just on just on an SSL, it's my shop.
Yep.
It's screwed everything off with HTTP. So is there anything when it says HTML5, does it, can you add it into SSL as well? So it works on Firefox.
Yep.
But in Internet Explorer, the grey box can be able to display on the secure content. So if anything like that was to be displayed, would it bring that grey box up?
As long as you make sure that both your Flash content and the page that it's loading from are on the HTTPS side, that box will come up basically if the Swift content isn't hosted in the HTTPS location. So if you make sure that both basically all content on that page is hosted in the same like secure location, it will come up. If it's insecure, then make sure that all your content's in a non-HTTPS location, and it will work absolutely fine.
Cool.
When you're working, do you have to keep everything on separate layers, like the wheel and the everything? Do you have to all have to be on layers?
You don't have to, but I've done it just so basically I know what on earth I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I've experienced when I've
Yeah.
the more you have, obviously, the more complicated it gets, and you lose track of what each thing is and where everything's going.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, so you can see here I've got quite a few layers, and what's nice about naming your layers, you can even name, if I find one, let me, actually I haven't, it's a bit weird, right, I'm just looking, yeah, if you do have like sub-layers which will normally be accessed by opening up there.
Like that group there underneath.
There you go, excellent, okay. So you can go into your sub-layers, you can actually name your sub-layers as well. And what's nice, when you start creating things, it will start using these names to help you out. So yeah, when you're creating various stuff, it'll, like animations and stuff. So for like the wheel here, it was on, wherever it's gone, that was there. It was on, I think it was on a sub-layer or a layer called wheel. So when I created the animation, it just said, okay, we'll call it wheel, the animation. So yeah, loads of layers, the better really for organising stuff.
If you export it as an interactive PDF, does it keep the animation? Does it lose the animation?
Good question. If I export it out as an interactive PDF, it would lose all of it. Okay, currently. So what you can do, for example, if I
buttons and stuff in interacting with PDFs.
Yeah. So if you do want kind of interactive stuff, so this is all Flash based, the way to kind of overcome the problem is to select all the Flash stuff here, Go to File, Export. Okay. Export it out as a Flash Player. I'll just call it Slideshow. And I'll stick it on my desktop. Okay. I will choose Selection because I only want the slideshow going. Okay. I don't want a HTML file. Okay. Keep the scale as it is. Right, and I'll just show you on the new document. I'll create myself a new document now. I could bring it back into this one, but I'll just show you on the new document. And then I can place my SWF file back into my InDesign document. Just put it there. Okay, I'll just change my page setup. Okay, so the important thing when you bring it in is don't scale it. Okay, keep it exactly the same size as it came in. So when I brought it in then, I just clicked on the page to bring it in at 100%. And then what I can do here is go into my media panel. Okay. And I want to ensure that I actually see something to start off with. So where it says poster, I can choose from current frame. So that brings it in. And then also what I need to turn on is this play on page load. Okay, that will make it instantly accessible. And then what I do now is I export it out as a PDF, and that will keep my Flash animation. So basically, Flash Player, sorry, the Acrobat, I should say, Acrobat Reader or Acrobat Professional has the Flash Player built into it. So it would then work. So I'm going to change it to Interactive PDF. Okay, I'll just call it London. Okay, on my desktop as a PDF. Okay. Let's have a quick look at these. So view after exporting I need, and all the others should be fine. So when it comes in, oh, right, it's going into full screen. When I click on this, it works. It just needs a bit of, so it's gone slightly wrong, but I could just sort that out by resizing it slightly, some things. So that's the way to get around it at the moment, is to export your stuff out, SWF, bring it back in, and make the document then into.
That's more I'd play with the interactive PDFs, not the bit that you showed.
Yeah. Yeah.
The really old school way that I would do that is literally take the whole output SWF
Yeah.
and actually work it from Acrobat. So
Yeah.
you start off with a blank Acrobat document and then import the SWF straight onto that blank page. And so you can take the whole production from the previous workflow with all of the different navigation and everything and literally just place it in as if it were a browser window.
Yeah.
And so you've got like a blank A4 page with then the Flash content straight on it. Blank Word documents were always a good one of those back in the dim and distant past.
Yep.
Single page files that you can just start from.
Any other question?
When you open it up in the web browser, is obviously you was navigating or dragging down to your computer. Is it where you can force it so it'll snap to the centre? So like if you open up a website or release shot, it'll snap to the centre of the page. Is there a way you sort of, because obviously the bottom part of it was off the page.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can force it so it'll stay central?
You might be able to answer that a bit better with the, because basically
It's just HTML.
Yeah.
It's just HTML. It'll have, chances are it'll have a physical size, won't it, in the HTML file. So it'll say it's like 1024 by 768 when it was exported. You can change that to 100% to 100%, and then it'll just scale it down to fit that area.
Okay.
Or ultimately design it so it's a little bit smaller than the browsers you expect to be viewing it on. So think of a little bit smaller area, and then you can use CSS to position it in the dead center of the screen. Just basically be a little bit of HTML workflow.
Where'd your bees go in winter? I don't see them. They don't all die, so.
Ian didn't do the bees example.
Okay. So is that useful for everyone? You come back? We had another one? Good.
What would you like to see next time?
Yeah, exactly. Well, tomorrow meet up because an automated system will probably